Hey there, friend. Welcome to Landscape Elevation. I'm Charlene Gray, and on this channel I visit with you each week to talk about all things landscape design. Whether you're just getting started with your side hustle or you're a pro and you have a number of seasons under your belt, I hope the things I talk about are helpful to you on your journey as a landscape designer. Now today I'm going to talk about how to narrow down your plant options. If you have ever felt overwhelmed by just the sheer number of plants out there that you have to choose from for your designs, then this video is for you. And I will just say up front that there is no shame in this. Plant overwhelm, as I call it, happens to the best of us. And although it can absolutely happen to experienced designers, it can especially happen for new designers, as they're getting started on their landscape design journey. So I will start by saying that going to the nursery, okay, so you've started a landscape design, you have some areas laid out and you know kind of what you want to do where on a site, and you think, oh, I'll just go to the nursery and see what they have in stock, see, what they have there that can give me ideas, whatever reason you go to see. This is very tempting to do, but it can and will accelerate plant overwhelm faster than you can say hydrangea, especially if you're feeling insecure about your overall plant knowledge or just the number of options that there are in general. So this insecurity comes from not knowing the facts about the site that you're working on and the facts about the characteristics that the plants you decide to plant need to have in order to thrive in the specific location on the site where you're placing them. So one big piece of advice here is to only visit the plant nursery after you've made a list of potential plants that you've already researched and you have the characteristics, of the plants in your list that show promise of being well suited to the site's conditions. This way you're going to the nursery to check out specific plants, not just all the plants. And then while you're there, you may even come across other plants that could work on your site, but you only know that they're solid potentials and could work because you've done your research and you know the facts about the site and the plant characteristics that you're looking for. So if you have time to read the plant tags while you're at the nursery, maybe you can go ahead and add a few more potentials to your list. But, so the first thing you're going to do is decide on all the facts so that you have a solid set of parameters around what characteristics the best plants for the various locations on your site will have. So here's how you go about setting your parameters. First, figure out where you're going to plant, and I mean the exact locations, and figure out this information about those locations. The soil conditions and the sun conditions. These are called the growing conditions. And each plant on Earth has its own combination of preferred growing conditions, just like each plantable space on Earth offers its own combination of growing conditions. So you need to figure out what growing conditions each space you're trying to plant on the site offers. So soil conditions, you're going to be looking at, is it dry soil, moist soil, wet soil, or does it actually hold standing water? 4 things. Figure out what your conditions on the site are based on those four things. And then on top of that, you want to know what is the solar orientation. So you want to know how many hours of sunlight does each space receive per day at any given time during the year. And once you know how many hours of sunlight it has in the winter, spring, summer, and fall, a guesstimate works here. Figure out, is it morning, midday, or afternoon sun, or is there just no sun? So morning, midday, and afternoon sun are different because midday sun is going to be your hottest sun. So if you have an area that's morning and afternoon sun, you open up your range of plant options because you don't have that really hot summer sun midday. Anyway, those 3 things alone could take a whole nother video. But anyway, so Once you've pinpointed the growing conditions, so the soil and the sun, of each planting location on your site, you need to consider the second set of parameters, which has to do with plant size. So what would be the biggest mature size plant this area can handle? When I say mature size, I mean the size that this plant will grow to in 5, 10, maybe 20 years from now. The size it is in the pot at the nursery is likely to be much smaller than it will eventually grow to be. So determine whether the perfect plants for the areas you're planting will grow to 1 feet tall or 1 foot tall, 3 feet tall, 5 feet tall, 10 feet tall, whatever. The point here is that you decide what's the tallest, what's the maximum height of any plant that should be growing in this space. But in addition to height, what's the maximum width that any plant that's growing in this space should be? Because, I'm sure you've probably seen an overgrown shrub growing right up next to a house in front of a window, or a tree growing into an overhead power line. It's too bad that someone didn't take 5 minutes 10 years ago to think ahead about what that plant would become 10 years from the day they planted it. Because now that once innocent little plant has grown into a maintenance issue that needs to be dealt with, either with constant pruning or chopping it down or digging it out altogether. So point being, take those 5 minutes and think ahead. Not only will you save someone future maintenance time and cost, but the plants you place will look better in their mature form because they haven't been chopped and pruned to, misshapen and unbecoming forms of themselves just so they fit into the space where they've been given to squeeze their way into. That's just gross. That's like stuffed sausage. Okay, now the last thing I'm going to share about setting your parameters is what most people, and sadly even some designers, do first. And here I am telling you to do it last. And I'll tell you why in a minute. So the last piece of your parameters puzzle is for you to decide what ornamental qualities or extras you'd like the plants to have for each specific location where you'll be planting. By this I mean, is it evergreen or deciduous? Is it woody or herbaceous? Is it perennial or annual? What are the color flowers? Are there specific color flowers? Are they fragrant flowers? Are the leaves variegated or solid? Is the foliage fine or bold textured, etc. Whatever ornamental qualities you can narrow down to. And this is the fun part because you get to decide on all of those ornamental aspects of a planting, of all the planting areas in your landscape. So you can see why people would do this first, because it's the eye candy. It's the artsy part. It's not the boring, sciencey, growing conditions and plant size part. So the 3 steps that I've just laid out to setting up your planting design parameters, the beautiful thing about following these 3 steps in the order as I've laid them out is that there's a narrowing of options, of plant options, and it makes for a natural funnel. So with each step, you're narrowing down your plant options tremendously. You went from every possible plant imaginable, and you've narrowed it down to only the plants that would thrive in each specific location on the site. So first, by growing conditions, then by mature size, height and width, and then by ornamental characteristics. Now, if you were to start with the ornamental characteristics, which can happen when you walk into a nursery unprepared, can you see how quickly you can be sent into a spiral of plant overwhelm? You'd be bouncing all over, reading plant tags, going back and forth, and trying to figure out which of these will grow in your conditions, all on the spot. And this will work if you force it. Many people do this, but it's a bumpy ride. So instead, do your research ahead of time and put together a list of plants that A, fit your growing conditions, soil and sun, and B, fit your size requirements, and you'll have made yourself a limited list of potential plants that now get to define the ornamental characteristics around, and then select the best plants from that limited list. Okay, so there you have my way of narrowing down your potential plant options, and I hope this has been helpful. So thank you so much for joining me and watching Landscape Elevation. If this content interests you, you may find value in the free guide I've made, which is my way of guiding you through the landscape design process, one step at a time. I consider it a must-have for any successful landscape design. The link to get it is from my website, and that is below, and it is completely free. Also, I love hearing from folks in the landscape design community. If you're a landscape designer and you have questions or a conversation to start, please share them in the comments or reach out to me directly from my website, landscapeelevation.com. All right, so thanks again, take care, and I hope you have a great week.